Yeah, you can tell sometimes we're practicing and practicing and practicing, and one of these days we'll get it right. But, so doing a lot of practicing. Where'd Ray go? He stepped out. Well, I'll get him. Okay. I need a deep breath, so everybody can take a deep breath for a second, and we'll transition a little bit from kind of the high energy speak of Ray and go a little bit. I want to thank y'all again. Ken did the introductions here, but this is I've worked with, following in Jerry's footsteps there in his transition to no-till before I came back to the farm. I've picked up on that and kind of worked with that transition and that system for the last several years, and have been trying to learn enough to where we can get it to the point where we can help others, and that's kind of been our goal here the last few years, is to perfect this system. So with that, going to talk a little bit about who we are, and Ken covered most of this, so you're right in our area here. Okay, everything's within 15 miles right here, so about 5,900 acres is what we're no-tilling this year. We also have several other things that keep us busy. There's the three of us that are owners that were introduced earlier. Jerry is semi-retired, but he's here more than I am. And then Nick and Neil, our Roy's two sons, have come back in within the last year and a half. So we're all here all the time. We also have an additional staff at a Farrow to Finish hog operation a couple miles from here. So we have that, which gives us manure, which is very valuable these days with the price of fertilizer, the biology that's in manure and all that. We'll talk about that. In addition to that, we have a drainage installation business. We put in, I don't know, not sure what the number was this spring that Jerry had, but maybe 175,000 feet of custom tile here this spring. It was a good spring for that. So. Also do a lot of custom spraying, fertilizer application, soil sampling, a lot of custom services. We have consulting and marketing via our website, which again, I know Kim welcomed you, but we do encourage anybody to visit our website, give us input. I have been tasked with bringing some things up to speed on the website on no-till and conservation and whatnot, and to be quite honest, haven't done a very good job. So I'm open to input of what people would like to see there, because I haven't got anything there yet. So, but we're working on it. We just brought that online a couple months ago, and so we're working on getting that up to speed. In addition to that, we have the seed dealership and anything else we can get our fingers in and keep us over busy, keeps us from doing anything too well. So anyway, so. With that, I'm just going to say a little bit. I don't think Ray's going to come back, so I'll talk about him since he's not here. It's what a great country that we live in, where a guy like Ray has a job. And honestly, a few years ago, the first time Ray was here on our farm, and I've done meetings with him since. You got to wonder how long they're going to keep letting that guy get up there and say what he says. But it's quite fun to be around Ray and hear his perspective on things. I was trying to figure out. A lot of you have heard me speak before. Some of you that are here for the week are new and probably haven't. But I was going through yesterday as we were digging the soil pits and things, and trying to figure out how to change things a little bit and freshen up the talk a little bit for those of you that have heard it, and keep the message that we're going for here. And we were out in the soil pit, and I'm used to, it's a very rare opportunity to be on our farm, and it's a lot of fun for us. It's one of the reasons I agreed to do this, is to be on our farm and go and look at our soil and have experts like Barry and Ray and Eileen and everybody here looking at our soils. And I wish it was a better condition scenario where we had some moisture in the soil and you could see some of the structure and things that we normally see. It's not ideal right now, but that's the way it goes. Not every year is. So we're kind of, we can do anything we want to try and do the best we can, but we're kind of at the mercy of the good Lord on on what he gives us for what the final result's going to be. So, but we were out there, so, really enjoy that time and looking at our soils, and just totally different than when I go, and I generally call myself a token farmer because they put together a really good program, and then they need a farmer to show up and say, yeah, this stuff works. Okay, everything they're saying, if you do it right, and you don't do some of what they say, and you do a little bit more of this and that, it'll work. So that's that's usually what I consider my job when I go to these meetings, and I think the guys probably think I do too many of them, but I enjoy it, and I like getting out and talking to people, and I think I always learn quite a bit, but it's especially different being here. So we were out there yesterday, and we were down in the pit, and Barry was digging in the soil, and comment was made about his pocket knife, and he said, "Oh, I get the cheap ones from Walmart for $2," and because he's on so many farms all around the state all the time digging, he said, you can't have a good pocket knife, right? So because you're going to leave it somewhere in a hole, or you're going to break it, or And Eileen kind of had the same story being from Purdue, and she said knives get dull, and you're always digging in the dirt and doing all this, and then so I figured, but they're local experts. They've got their knife. It may be a little worn, but they're there. And then there was Ray, and he's there, and he leaned over to me and said, "I can do a little digging here. Can I borrow your pocket knife?" So he is so much of an expert that he has to go everywhere he goes on an airplane, and most of the time all he's got is his carry-on, and so he is relegated to borrowing the local farmer's knife. So I did have a knife that I was loaned to Ray, and he was quite a lot of fun with that. So I thought for effect, I noticed quite a few eyes, so I put on the sidearm today, which actually is my daughter's over there. She's quite a little target shooter. And wanted to make the point. Okay, and that's really what this all comes down to. The reason you're here on our farm, and we're talking to you about our farm. We are not visitors here. Okay, we don't have to borrow a pocket knife. We don't have to, okay, this is our farm for the 4th generation. Okay, we are, and we've got the 5th generation coming on. This is our farm, our soil, our livelihood. I mean, when I talk to my oldest daughter about the crop condition this year, and whether it's going to rain, and whether the insurance is going to work, I mean, that's brought home to her talking about college. I say, this is cash flow for college coming up here real soon. This is our farm, our history, our future here. We can't just pick up and move and go somewhere else if we wear this soil out. Okay, so this is real for us. This is as real as it gets, and that's the reason I think I go around and talk to people about this, and agriculture is different that way than most industries. We can't move to China. Okay, China might be able to increase their productivity, and they're going to need to, just like we do. Okay, everybody does, but we can't physically take this asset and go somewhere else. We have got to use it or lose it. Ray had the pictures of it going away. That's real. We can repair it. We can try and help it after we've depleted it, but we really can't build it back as fast as we could lose it. So if it's gone, and we're going to be growing olives, and I like olives, but that's not really what we ought to be growing here. Okay, but if we get down to rocks and depleted soil, that's where we're at. So that's our perspective. Okay, so that's the long-term agriculture perspective. Now there's short-term issues that we have to deal with about no-till versus conventional, and landlord relations, and cash flows from year to year. We're going to talk about some of that when we get into the economics at the end of this presentation. But the reality for agriculture is this is a long-term thing that we're dealing with. We understand that we can't fix it all in 1 year. Okay, we would like to. We like to do things that will pay for themselves the first year. But we understand that this is a long-term scenario, and that's what we're trying to deal with. So I'm just going to go through real quick kind of how we've approached no-till and why soil quality is important on our farm, and then we're going to spend whatever time we've got left going through kind of our numbers here on our farm. This is what we're going to look at. There'll be discussion over lunch. There'll be discussion after you leave today about the numbers that I'm going to present. These are our numbers on our farm. So since I'm on my farm today, I get to say that's just the way it is. So, normally I have to go out and I have to apologize, say, sorry if your numbers are different. Okay, today we're here on our place. That's the way it is on this farm, the reality. Okay, so with that, let's just move forward through this a little bit. So to manage soil quality, we do continuous no-till. Again, I don't look at rotational no-till, which is no-till beans in the corn stalks. That's an economic decision. That's a convenience decision. That's not no-till. That's a choice not to till in a given year. Okay, that's not no-till. That's just a different system. Okay, so when I talk no-till, I talk continuous no-till for long term, and to get those benefits that we're looking at. Okay. So we work real hard at continuous no-till and maintaining that. Drainage is key to that. I said we have a drainage business. We have a drainage business because we wanted to drain our farms. We made a lot of investment in equipment and expertise to do that. Like most of the other things we do, then it made sense to make money also doing that. But the real reason we have a drainage business is to take care of the problems on our farm and increase the productivity on our farm. Okay, cover crops. We'll get into that. Okay, that's the new big thing right now. We've been doing cover crops about 8 years now, and which is nothing compared to some of these guys that Ray was talking about, but we're seeing the benefits, and we'll talk a little bit about what those are. Fertility. 1 acre grid fertility I've been doing since 1993. I pulled my first set of 1 acre grids. Most people that I talk to think that's a little overkill. They like to go soil types. You guys can provide me with nice soil type maps and everything, and we have a soil scientist here, I believe, that maybe could vouch for the accuracy of those. Depending on how recent they are and what you're trying to do with them, for the money, I can pull a 1 acre grid soil test and do some great things managing my fertility. Our sources for calcium, we made a lot of investment in flotation equipment, flotation tires, that kind of thing, which we'll see when we go outside on our way to the pit later. Low disturbance applicators, and again, manage for long-term soil health. That's what we're looking for. Our crop is stressed right now. There's no doubt about it. When we get to the pit, I think you'll see that I think it has hope. Okay, we're not dead yet. I think we have hope, and that's kind of sometimes what you're buying in a year like this is soil health can buy you hope and days. Because what we're dealing with in this situation is we're trying to feed that thing along, so we're dealing with surviving until the next rain. Okay, it may not be a record yield at this point, but the difference can be huge in how well you come from here to there in surviving until that next rain, especially at the end of this week. If we're going to be in the near 100 degrees, it's going to take everything that soil can produce to keep the temperature down and keep those roots cool and to conserve whatever moisture we can, and that's what we've been working on. Okay, so even though in June no-till crops don't generally look quite as good as conventional, they got off to a little slower start, maybe a little more uneven. I think when we come out the other side in September or October, when this thing is over, we'll find that that soil quality has been a real benefit to us. So, again, that's what it returns to us, like we were talking about, increased yield, all sorts of biology. We got a lot better experts on all that here than me. Our nutrient efficiency seems to have really gone up, drought tolerance. Water holding capacity, huge again right now. I would love to just get that 1 inch of rain and capture all of that. We had that. We had a recharge event on some of the fields right through here this spring where we got a 3-inch rain, and the difference in the ponding and the infiltration on the no-till fields, that was right at the beginning of May, and we got a lot of water into the profile that we're utilizing right now. So plant health, soil structure. for trafficability. Like I said, for harvest, if it's a wet harvest, things like that, the structure and trafficability of the soil, once you've established no-till and you don't mess it up, even with vertical tillage, anything you do, you know, you've got to be really careful. And we do have to do some vertical tillage and stuff like that, very rarely at this point. But when we do, anytime you do that, you always run the risk of moving that compaction back deeper. Next time you've got to go back deeper to get it out. So you've got to really watch your trafficability and that kind of thing on those. So, you know, other benefits of no-till sustainability, time and labor savings and timeliness are two different issues. We had Uncle Jerry's brother, Doyle, my father, passed away back in 1986, so it's been quite a few years ago now. And so timing, I think they switched to no-till in 92, finally after, between that and the drought in 88, and going to some good meetings with some people, and maybe that's a little bit of where we feel like we need to pay back and have this kind of thing, and seeing the benefits, and you know, so that timeliness and labor savings was important. That's part of the reality. So the equipment savings, Ken mentioned it this morning, I'm easily $1 million less equipment, and that was probably an old number. You know, I mean, when you look at what we looked at replacing a tractor this year, they're talking three, you know, just a normal, what I call little row crop tractor for over $300,000. So, you know, millions of dollars of equipment, and if you don't have to have a couple of those tractors and some of that expensive iron, it's a big deal. So we got improved opportunities. You know, timeliness is getting in the fields in the fall and spring. There's a lot of times where we have an opportunity with no-till and that soil structure and the water infiltration, instead of finding those kind of things, to get out there and then not having to work the soil. Maybe we'll get in there and get it planted ahead of the rain, you know, or in between the rains, because we're not, you know, having to work it and wait a day for it to lay, and, you know, those kind of things. So a lot of times we can get in there. It's not always ideal, but a lot of times, like last year, where we were fighting every time we planted, it was too wet, but it was the difference between going to the field and running a field cultivator when it's too wet and then having it rain on you before you got done, or going to the field with the planter when it's too wet and at least it's planted. You know, you didn't just seal it over again. So a lot of issues like that, and we believe the bottom line, more money in the bank, and that's important too. That's important to our family. That's how we take care of our family. So drainage, we talked about a little bit. It's critical. There's no doubt about that. It's in making the system work. You can certainly work with cover crops. You can work with your fertilizer management. You can do all that. But it's really hard to overcome, especially in no-till, the damage that's done with poor drainage. Compaction, both from equipment, standing water, poor, you know, anaerobic situations where you get that standing water and it doesn't get away fast enough, stuff like that. So certainly drainage, I encourage as a part of the no-till system. I talked a little bit about the 1 acre grid, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on fertility. I assume you've all been pretty well educated in fertility and managing that, but for us, the intensive fertility management goes along with no-till really well. Number one, it's the fact that in the fall or in the spring when I'm pulling samples, I'm able to have the time to pull those samples and to do that because I'm not sitting in a field cultivator or a chisel plow. Okay, so it's one of the things that we've done to utilize our time in what we believe is in a more effective way. Okay, so rather than managing some things that we don't see benefit from, we're using our time to manage some things like sampling and variable rate applications and stuff like that in a way that has worked for us. So certainly with the 1 acre grids, there's a lot of value in that resolution. We use the organic matter and CEC and information like that to manage all of our inputs as far as seeding populations, nitrogen rates, those kind of things are all controllable at that scale. At the 2.5 acre grid, you've got a 50-50 shot at whether you're right. At the 1 acre grid, you've got about an 80% shot of representing that acre well. And so we're down to a resolution where we can actually manage our inputs with that soil test and do a good job. So I'm going to kind of buzz through this so we can get some of the other goodies here, but we use multiple amendments or you know, sources for nutrition. we're big believers in high-cal lime. We pay a lot of extra money to bring in high-cal lime. That's pretty much a rule on this farm. Jerry's been farming here for 40 plus years in his adult professional farming life, plus his earlier life. So he's seen the results of using the local dolomite and high mag limes, and it takes a long time to fix that. On our soils, the magnesium is a very bad thing. As long as you have enough. Okay, and that's where you get into that soil testing, and we have some fields now finally after 40 years of using high-cal lime where we're starting to see a need for a little bit of magnesium. But those are management issues, and again, getting the soil environment right, using the right inputs to get the no-till to work better. Okay, because that's really what this whole thing is not about no-till. It's about soil quality, and it's about getting that whole system to a point where you have an optimum environment for that plant to grow and produce for you. So, and again, so those would be the numbers we'd be shooting for on soil balance. Just really saying that you don't want to have anything too far out of whack, you know, from because it just affects your availability on everything, and that's really the key there. Nitrogen we're not going to talk a lot about. I will say we, as a rule, use less nitrogen than just about anybody around here. That's not necessarily less than anybody, but where we're at here today, we're on the low end of the nitrogen use, and that's going to be for us 12 gallon and 28 on the planter, which is 30 something pounds on the planter, and then we would side dress, either pre-planter or side dress, with about another 130 pounds of NH3. We also, depending on the year, this year we didn't put much of the phosphate and things with that because the price of the 1034 oil was just out of whack. So we had to kind of manage that based on the nutrient price. But so you're at 130 plus 30 is 160 plus the bean credit. So we call that 200 total. Most of the guys around here would be at 220 plus the bean credit. So they would be at about 260 would be a conventional rate around here at this point, I think. I think we're shooting for about the same yield. So whether it's an efficiency of no-till, cycling, that kind of thing, or just us being too stingy and not wanting to spend the money, I don't know what it is. But anyway, so we're having good results with fairly low rates by this standard. Again, the bar will be out there. We can look at that when we go outside. Back to the cover crops. It's important for this group here to think about why you're recommending cover crops and why you would use cover crops. And it's important to take that to the farm level. I mean, that's why it's critical to have an NRCS person that can come to your farm. You know, you can't dictate this all from Washington. We need people coming to our farm, and I didn't get to ask Ray earlier, but the one question that was a little concerning to me is when he said that he was out there with all of these no-tillers, and none of them had taken a shovel to the field and dug in their soil. I said, well, you know, number one, shame on them, because they should care about what's going on. So, but the number two question was, where was the NRCS representative for them? Because I guarantee that the people he was talking to were in programs, and they were collecting dollars for, you know, equipped with cover crops or no-till or whatever, and they're getting payments for things that are supposed to have a benefit, and they need to understand, in a year like this when the crops don't look so good, you wonder if it wouldn't have been better if you had gone out there with a chisel plow and tore it up and got a little faster start, and got those roots a little deeper, a little quicker. You know, they've got to understand why. Okay, that's part of these programs and this education process is, you know, I need to have some confidence when I'm standing here now and saying, well, it looks pretty rough. I kind of wish I had that neighbor's field across the road. It's a little taller. that's not going to yield anymore. And I've seen it enough times, but you know, they need to be out there, and whether it's, you know, I doubt that any of them, if their DC had stopped by with a spade or a shovel and said, hey, let's go to the field and see how this practice is working. Okay, see how it looks on your farm, because that's what matters, not what the data says or anything else. It really matters how it looks on your farm, how it's working on your farm. I doubt any of them would have said no. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's important to really take these programs home by showing them what it's doing on their farm. Again, so these are all things that we look at it. They're all soil quality benefits. We're taking it to the next level with cover crops. Is really the goal of the cover crops, not by themselves to solve anything, but things where maybe there's holes in our systems, or where no-till works, but it's slow. Okay, getting rid of compaction. No-till works, but it takes a long time. So, you know, those roots will find a hole, they will get through, they will go down the wormholes. But if we can get an extra growing season in there with a cover crop, get more roots, you know, more moving of that soil, freezing and thawing, and more holes, then it's going to be faster and it loosens it up faster. So anyway, we need to understand why we're using them. Same idea there. So definitely you guys are helping us choose which cover crops. I spend a lot of time in a lot of these meetings talking to guys about which cover crops and why, and a lot of it comes down to the rotation and the location, right? So if I'm in northern Indiana growing continuous corn, I better look at flying something on that can handle being flown on early and get it established. If I'm in southern Indiana growing, you know, 2.8 beans, and I want to put a cover crop there, or maybe growing wheat with a short season double crop bean, you know, I'm out there at the 1st of September, I've got a lot of different options than the guy that's not going to be out there until November. So we need to, you know, really be cautious about recommending something to somebody that doesn't fit what they, number one, the problem they're trying to solve, whether they're trying to build organic matter, remove compaction, you know, what they're trying to do. Because we tailor, we'll go through the mixes that we use, we tailor things a lot on our farm to what we're trying to do, both with the timing window and the soil condition window, and rotating through with what's going to be the following crop and those kind of things. Seeding, and we don't have much time to get into that. There's a lot of options for seeding. Delivery, so that is, I think, Diana? That's the end of that part. So we're going to talk a little bit about the economics. There, can you pass this one out? No, Diana's going to pass it. You got to get to everybody. All right, so they're going to pass around some economic stuff here. And I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet, hopefully. Say again, this is our farm, our numbers. If I'm somewhere else, you can debate them all day long, but you can debate them here too. I don't mind, but bottom line is this is for us here locally, what we feel like the comparison in the dollars between the two systems, no-till and conventional. Now for what I call conventional, of course in this area is not going to be a moldboard plow. It's going to be what would be considered conservation tillage, you know, disc chisel, field cultivator scenario, probably no-till beans. So as you get this, you can kind of take a look and go through that. But what we're looking at here, a lot of things are the same. Okay, so as you go down through there, the soil test, I'm going to say if I was managing this farm, I'm going to spend money on soil tests either way. Okay, because this is our farm and we want to take care of it, so we're going to spend money on soil tests either way, about the same amount of money. We're not going to spend much money on the chisel plow. Okay, so we do have occasionally, we said 8% of the acres every 4th year. That's probably a little overstated at this point since we've been doing cover crops. quite honestly, it's closer to 0% of the acres ever. But we're making some allowance for the fact that you have some traffic areas and some areas where the drainage is not quite right, that when you fix the drainage, you need to go in there and loosen that, do some vertical tillage, those kind of things. So we threw a little bit, and when you pencil that out, it doesn't come out to very many cents per acre per year when you figure out how many acres we do. But anyway, we're trying to put this in a per acre number, so to spread it out there. We do spend money on fall weed control on a portion of our acres. Cereal rye has actually become our best fall weed control tool. This isn't going to work very good for me. So cereal rye has become our best fall weed control tool. And that number is not accounted for in there because this is just talking about our chemical fall weed control. But in a conventional system, you're generally not going to do that. So other than some guys will do that ahead of beans, but we just gave them the benefit of the doubt that they're not going to do that. Okay, in addition to that, our pre-plant chemicals probably are going to be the same as far as the residual, but we did say that we're going to need more chemical in our burn down, those kind of things. So we're trying to be fair about that, but that more chemical is to offset the fact that we don't use field cultivator. Okay? Now, average around here this year, I would say the field cultivator ran over the average farm 3 times. Quite honestly, by the time they got it worked out, the weather was good and everybody was trying to slow down planting. So they just kept working it and working it and working it. So instead of the 1.3 passes on average that I've got on there, I would say on average it was probably at least 3 times around here with the field cultivator this year. But again, we're trying to be representative. A lot of these things I just went and used if you're not familiar with it, there is Purdue puts out MyEcon puts out a great publication that has the custom rates for the state of Indiana. That's based on a survey. And that's a great place when you're looking for cost numbers. And so for comparison here on a lot of these things, I have used their base normal tillage, normal conventional system, and then either added or subtracted for the noted reason for the no-till version. So I added a couple of dollars an acre for an expensive no-till planter because there is a lot of, we've got, when we go out and look at the planter, there are a lot of attachments, a lot of things that make that planter both more expensive to buy and more expensive to maintain than what a traditional planter would be. So, a couple dollars an acre doesn't sound like a lot, but you're talking $6,000–7,000 a year on the acres that planter covers for extra maintenance and to go towards the initial investment on that planter is what we're allowing there. Okay, the seed cost I'm going to say is about the same. You get a little bit argument maybe that you'll have to plant a couple thousand seeds more in no-till. We can debate that all day long. So it's not changing it 1,000 or 2,000 seeds is not going to change that a lot. So 28% on the planter. You're going to see that I charged more for us. Actually, that's a little higher rate than what we're using right now. I charged it up though because no-till does need that additional nitrogen on the planter early on before the biology gets going when the soils may be a little cooler in the spring. So that's a timing effect that is a negative cost-wise for no-till. It's a more expensive source of N and that kind of thing. So trying to be fair here. For what Barry said, fungicide, insecticide, we hardly ever use either one. Just to be perfectly honest, we use insecticide on our refuge rows on the corn. Just a granular insecticide there. Other than that, it has been years since we have done any kind of post-application of fungicide or insecticide other than to test. And when we test, it has not paid. All of our neighbors test and they tell us we're crazy that we're not doing it because it pays by 20 bushels sometimes. We have tested and we continue to test, and we have enough things going on that we don't see the outbreaks in our fields. Now, it's not to say this year with its dry, its stressed crop, those kind of things, I'm not saying I'm not going to spray an insecticide if we have an insect issue. I'm not saying that there won't be a reason for a fungicide if it were to ever start raining and we try to salvage what crop we had left. But we scout, consistently and watch for those things, and generally do not have to make those applications. We just do not reach economic levels. So that's been definitely a big plus going our way on that one. Anyway, so we did, most of your chemical applications are going to be the same post. We threw in a little extra money here for paying my kids or somebody to go out and dig trees. One of the things that you have a little trouble with in no-till sometimes, you get pokeberries and maple trees, and mulberry trees. So you got some things like that to deal with. It's a different set of issues. Harvest, we actually do see a less fuel use and whatnot because of the better soil conditions. And then most of our hauling and stuff's the same. So anyway, I wanted to provide that to all of you because I think that's off of our farm, real farm. That's our numbers, and I think it's a valuable tool when you're talking to people about this system. So for us, the real question then comes down to the bottom line, and there you can see total cost conventional system $636.56, no-till $555.12, or a difference in no-till's favor of $81 per acre. So that sounds pretty good. It sounds good to us. That has not taken into account the bigger economic pictures of not owning that additional $1 million worth of equipment, that additional overhead, not having the additional, some of the additional labor we'd have to have around, and some of those things in the off season because we need the labor, to get that tillage and stuff done. A lot of times those are, you'll tend to carry a little more labor for those reasons. It doesn't count $200,000 that we brought in this spring by being able to have a custom tile business with our same workforce that puts out the crop, because they weren't out working the ground and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things, like Ken said, that we're being conservative. That's just the direct cost of putting out the crop. Okay, so for that, there's an $81 difference. I don't know this year if corn's $5 or $10 or $3 when it's all said and done. Let's say it's $5 because that seems like a reasonably safe number at this point. That's 16 bushel. So that means neglecting all the other benefits, neglecting the long-term benefit, neglecting the probably drought tolerance, I hope, that we're looking at this year. The drought tolerance that we saw last year, that when we got dry the second half of the growing season last year, put us the furthest above the county average that we've ever been. So neglecting all those things and just saying direct cost, it takes 16 bushel. There will be people that will argue, there are people right around here that will argue that that 16 bushel is not enough to make them want a no-till. Okay, well, add the other 10 or 12 bushel that comes from all those other things. They still, I don't know, that's pretty iffy. And those people are hard to talk to at this point. But that's what it comes down to. Is it a big enough benefit? Last year it was 30 or 40 bushel. I think it'll be close to that much this year. In real for sure yield difference just from the stress tolerance. But that's where the discussion is. And for us, when you look at all the other things, the societal expense, there's so many reasons. We're accountable for everything that leaves this farm. My kids over there, if they want to farm, I want them to have good soil. So, you factor all that in. I just don't think there's any logical argument at this point for tillage, but it still gets made. So in addition to that, I think I got about 5 minutes before lunch. So I've got the second sheet that was handed out to you. Is a cover crop analysis, and I've updated some of the numbers, but basically what you're going to see is from the 2010 season because I did a really good job in 2010 of keeping track of tractor hours and labor hours. Really wanted to see what the story was with this cover crop thing and how much it was costing us, because I knew we were laying out a bunch of money for seed. Okay, we're not eligible for a lot of those meat equip programs and things like that because we've been doing it too long. So we do have CSP, but we tend to spend that money pretty quick. And you know, this is all money that's coming out of our budget, out of our pockets. I did not put this in the other discussions. I think it just confuses because you start talking about yield benefits and things like that. I wanted to leave that at equal systems. I guess equal approaches. So what you're looking at, and I didn't even come up with the right one. Thanks. Seems like. There we go. Now we got it. So what you're looking at here is, like I said, we target our cover crops very specifically to, we don't grow any wheat. Okay, so we're dealing with the corn soybean rotation in central Indiana, targeted very much to the calendar and to the following crop and to the needs of the particular farm. So try and balance those three. But the bottom line really comes down to is where did the combine get the crop out of the way so I can go get it planted? Because the calendar is your biggest enemy on this. So that's a lot of it. And sometimes we do things to get a cover rather than no cover, even if it's not the ideal one. But so as you look through here, and we're not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this, but the numbers are there for you. The first is the method. Is the number of acres for the different seeding methods. Okay, so I've got aerial seeding, and this year we didn't do, we've got a tie drill that we use for a lot of our grasses and for test plots and whatnot. And then we're going to look out here when we go out at our 15-inch white planter that we use for soybeans that I convert and use for cover crops. So and that's kind of our primary because it's the width and the speed and everything, and been able to do cover crops on that. So then when you look at the seed cost, we've done a whole bunch of different things that year. So to compare what worked, we let some cereal rye grow out, we fertilized it, saved the seed, because cereal rye is getting expensive, and we wanted to know how that worked in this area and see how we could do there. We got feed oats from the local elevator. There's horses galore around here, and you can go pick up feed oats anytime you want. So we ran straight feed oats. We got seed oats, we've got cereal rye bagged, oats bagged, kind of every combination we could come up with, Austrian winter peas, all those sorts of things. And what you'll see there then is the seeding rate, and that depends on whether it's drilled or planted. And that's why you'll see noted sometimes that it says drilled, because those will be different seeding rates than what they would with the planter, with the precision planter where you can bring the rate down in the wider row spacing. And the cost per unit, so you know if it's oats or rye, it's going to be dollars per bushel, that kind of thing, or what we thought it cost us to grow it, or that kind of thing. So anyway, and how those work out in cost per acre. That's really the one that matters. The last column is not critically important until we get to the end. The cost per acre is going to be, you know, the comparison for those different things playing in different ways. These would be our blends, which would be a combination of some of those things above. Okay, so in certain, you know, if we're planting oats and radishes, then you're going to take the two separate ones there and blend them together to get a blend cost. You know, like the peas, obviously winter peas, 20 pounds of winter peas is expensive as opposed to radishes or something like that. So that mix is pretty high dollar. Now if we're using feed oats with less than 2 pounds of radishes thrown in with it, $7. Well, that's cover crop seed pretty cheap. You know, getting something growing out there on a lot of acres pretty cost effectively. The final part there then is the other costs. So like I said, we kept track of tractor hours. That's a lease tractor that we were pulling that planter with. So we know that that's what it cost us per hour on that lease for that tractor. Labor, we kept track of the actual fuel consumption on the tractor for that whole cover crop planting season. Divided that out to the acres. Repairs and wear and tear, if you're going to use your bean planter, a precision planter, to go over this many acres of cover crop, it costs money. It does wear out. It's out there, got some pretty good wear on it at this point. We've got a 40-foot bean planter at this point that has been 5 years old now. We're guessing maybe 12, 14,000 acres we put through it. So it is real wear when you get down to the point where it starts to break. The first couple of years it didn't seem like it was real wear, but it is. It does wear out. You guys are back there that have to rebuild it. This is the part where, again, if I was somewhere else, you could argue with me, but we're not, so you're still welcome to argue with me over lunch or later on. But there's a lot of things, positive and negative. We've got negative on there where we thought we would save some nitrogen, kind of like what may happen this year where we didn't get the rainfall to release the nitrogen. Thought we could save some nitrogen, took a yield hit because we tried to save too much and things didn't work out for us. There's things on there that are positives. Cereal rye is one of the big positives. I don't have it on there nearly high enough. A lot ahead of our beans, we see easily a lot of times 4 or 6 bushel. I've got on there 2. Those kind of things, this drought tolerance issue of getting the water in and covering the ground. And I was at a meeting at Monsanto a couple weeks ago in St. Louis, and we were talking about this whole cover crop issue, and some of the data that they were pulling out, some of the stuff said, you could be, at this point now, we could be 4 or 5 inches of water ahead of where we would be in a conventional till system, just in what we haven't lost. What we haven't, when we open that soil in the spring and dry it out, which is what we think we need to do to get it planted, where we've kept the temperature down, conserved that water, what we've gotten into the soil when we have had rain events, they're saying easily 4 or 5 inches difference at this point. So, all of those things are totaled up there, and those numbers are a little bit arbitrary. I can make that total negative, I can make it twice as big, and numbers don't lie, but figures do. So we can play around with that. The bottom line is we feel like there is a significant return on our investment in cover crops in a given year and in the long term to justify taking the time and putting the money into doing that. So with that, you're going to have to listen to me again after lunch, but I believe, are we